Hi, Teacher Meg here again. Welcome back. This is Module 7 in our total series. There's 4 parts in this module, and this time we'll be focusing on active listening and questioning skills. So in Module 6, we did more of an introduction to communication, and we talked about public speaking and misconceptions in the workplace, etc., etc. However, now we're going to focus more on active listening because this is just as much a part of communicating as speaking is. So in active listening, there are 3 components, we could say. There's the reflective technique, the listener orientation, as well as questioning skills. So first we're going to start on listener orientation. Orientation, what is that? Well, orientation is where you are. You have to locate yourself. Okay, so as a listener, we might have questions that involve I, my, me. You have to change your perspective. Okay, so you're on one side of the world, you have to move, orient to the other side. So instead of thinking, what can I do for this person? You should think, how does the speaker see themselves? Or instead of thinking, how do I see this person? You should think, how does the speaker view their own situation? Right? So we're turning the concept on its head. It's not about me, it's about the speaker. Okay, and in this listening orientation thing, we can talk about six different qualities of listener orientation and how to become a good listener. Now, I want to make a statement. All of this is not from my own research. The one particularly that I'm talking about comes from Carl Rogers, who is a clinical psychologist. Okay, and these are some 6 qualities of listener orientation. So first, where are you on the map? Okay, let's figure that out. Let's figure how to get from point A to point B. All right, so let's go. Number 1, when you listen, you need to have undivided attention. Nothing else is taking your attention. 100% is all on the speaker. Now, we live in a distracted environment. Always phones, text messages, calls, notifications, ding, 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 everywhere. But you need to have an environment free of these distractions where you won't be disturbed. So this can involve switching your cell phone or your computer or tablet, whatever device, to silent mode, or even turning it off, or just avoid looking at anything other than the person that you're looking at, right? So forget about the other people that may be in the room and focus solely on the speaker and what they are saying. Number 2, empathy. And we learned a bit more about this before in module number 2 about EQ, emotional intelligence, but we're going to get back into it now with listener orientation. Empathy, as a review, is awareness of another person's feelings, and this will develop naturally if one is actively listening. So unless you're dealing with someone who is unusually candid, someone who's very frank, direct, as we say, everything is worn out on their sleeve. Someone who's very out there, right, with everything they're saying. It's not common, but what you'll normally need to do is interpret those nonverbal cues, those things that aren't spoken. So you can show empathy by acknowledging their emotions, even if these are positive or negative, right? So you can see this through tone of voice. For example, oh yes, I can understand why you feel that way. because now you're shifting the focus onto the other person. If you can empathize, if you can put yourself in that speaker's shoes, it is very, very good. It's critical as it helps you to tune in to understand and know what is important to the speaker. Empathy, it's not easy, but we need to try and practice it instead of advising others, telling others, agreeing, disagreeing, using our own point of view, me. We have to learn to listen and think about their perspective of things. And this works in every area of life. And third one, respect. Respect is one of the most important qualities in any human being. Likewise, disrespect is one of the worst traits. Respect, what is it? Basically thinking well of every person, especially we're focusing on the speaker. Okay, don't judge them according to some preconceived standard of personal worth, how you think they are. Just get the message, empathize, and respect the person for who they are. You don't have to like them, but respect them. Number 4, acceptance. You should avoid expressing agreement or disagreement with what the other person says. We always have our own opinion, but it is simply accepted as the current state of play, and this will serve as a starting point for later discussion, right? So we don't have to worry about putting in our opinion right away. Later on, after the whole speech is done, we can talk later. But from the beginning, it's just you're listening, okay? We got to keep that in mind, listening and listening well. So accept what they have to say, discuss later. Sorry, number 4, acceptance. And this attitude, it will encourage the speaker to be less defensive, right? And say things that they might otherwise not say at all. So it helps both of you. Number 5, congruence. What exactly is congruency? It's basically being on the same page. So this refers to openness, frankness, genuineness on your part as a listener. And if you have very, very negative feelings about what you're hearing, this is going to be difficult because our body language shows everything. So this principle of being congruent is very, very important because people, we talked about already, they read body language the most and then tone of voice. So it has nothing to do with what you're saying. So we are all very good at reading our body language and matching it up with our verbal signals, our tone of voice. And mostly our interpretation comes from this body language stuff, right? So this means if you're saying something that's different than what you feel, then the other person that's listening or speaking, they will notice this and they'll be like, are they lying, or they don't know what they're talking about, or it'll just be confusing, right? And they might think you're a little bit suspicious, I don't know, right? Maybe even hostile, aggressive, but they'll be confused. They'll just leave confused in the end. So make sure that your body language reflects what you believe in your speech. And the last one, concreteness. It's very easy for someone to speak in using vague terminology, but you need to get back down and make sure that you understand exactly what they're saying by asking them for concrete examples, concrete, real, specific things. So focus on the specific, not just the vague generalities. For example, you could say, oh, supplier X, he's always late in delivering. Or they might say, supplier X has been more than one day late on 3 out of 5 deliveries. So these are kind of general, and a person might also depersonalize something that they want to say by changing it to think, I think most people want instead of I want. Remember, you're putting yourself in that speaker's position, right? And trying to figure out what they want, how they view it, all of that stuff, right? So maybe they're trying to be nice and say, oh, you know, most people want this, but what they're really saying is, I want this and I need you to do this. So you can encourage this concreteness if they're being vague, right? If they're not being specific with their topic, you can ask them exactly, okay, who or what and when and how. What is a specific incident you're referring to, and what do you need us to do? How do you need us to react? So those are 6 components of active listening, and that concludes this first module part in module 7 of active listening and questioning skills. In the next one, we'll get to the second listening component called reflective technique. Okay, thank you for watching this today, and I'll see you in the next module.